Hello and welcome back to Social Security Post, your trusted source for breaking updates and honest explanations on Social Security benefits and what's really happening in our economy. Today, we are diving into a big question that has been on everyone's mind. Is the so-called Doge dividend check still alive, or is it finished? Plus, we'll break down what President Trump's one big beautiful bill means for your family's finances, especially if you're worried about high prices and shrinking paychecks. We will look at everything from no taxes on tips and overtime to expanded tax credits, and also what cuts to social safety nets could mean for millions of Americans. If you have any question about Social Security or how these changes could affect you, please drop your question in the comments. I'll do my best to answer you personally. And before we jump in, please take just 1 second to hit that like button and subscribe to Social Security Post. It truly helps us keep delivering these important updates straight to you. Now let's get started. Let's start by unpacking the Doge dividend check, something many folks have heard about, but few actually understand. The original idea was pretty simple on paper. James Fishbach, who created the proposal, argued that the government could find massive savings by working with tech entrepreneur Elon Musk's ideas for shrinking bureaucracy. In theory, those savings would go straight back to the American people in the form of a Doge dividend, amounting to up to $5,000 per household. Sounds good, right? But the reality behind this promise is a lot more complicated. Fishbach's plan depended on the government saving as much as $2 trillion through a more efficient structure, which turned out to be a dream that was impossible to reach in such a short period of time. And if you are sitting there wondering, could I really get $5,000? Well, let's look at the numbers. Even James Fishbach admitted in public statements that the Doge program fell short of its ambitious expectations. While he believed in Elon Musk's push to streamline government, the actual savings, at least as of the last report in June 2025, were only around $190 billion. That's a far cry from $2 trillion or even from the reduced $1 trillion goal they had later tried to set. This means the $5,000 payout could drop to around $2,500 or maybe disappear altogether. When you hear these rumors about $5,000 checks coming from Doge savings, think twice, because even the architects of the plan admit they haven't come close to what they promised. People still hope for that payout, but the math does not support it. Okay, so for now, it looks like the Doge dividend is more fiction than fact, and it is essential to separate wishful thinking from economic reality. Stay tuned as we look deeper into what is replacing these dreams. Now let's dig even deeper into those Doge savings numbers. The talk on social media and in news feeds makes it sound like this money is about to pour into your mailbox, but the actual data paints a very different picture. Originally, the Doge program was sold with promises of saving $2 trillion for the government by eliminating waste and inefficiency. But even after they tried to scale down that target to $1 trillion, the final reported savings came in at only $190 billion. That is not small change, but is nowhere near the $2 trillion required to make a $5,000 check a reality for every household. With that kind of shortfall, any potential dividend would have to shrink by half or even more. Some estimates say the amount might barely reach $2,500 per household if it even happens at all. And given how spending priorities are shifting, that seems very unlikely to materialize. It is important to understand that the Doge plan was essentially a dream of turning federal belt tightening into direct cash for American taxpayers. However, without hitting even half the original savings target, the math collapses. A lot of folks are going to be disappointed if they think a $5,000 Doge dividend check is coming their way any day now. That is simply not supported by what the government has saved so far. On top of that, with other programs and spending priorities demanding attention, the chance of Congress approving a separate Doge dividend payout has shrunk almost to zero. The conversation has largely moved on to other forms of relief like targeted tax breaks, because those are easier to deliver than a big one-time payout. So if you have been counting on the Doge dividend, I have to tell you, the numbers just do not add up. It is a tough reality, but it is better to see it now than be surprised later. While the Doge dividend may have faded, there is a fresh push for relief in President Trump's new one big beautiful bill, which was designed to bring Americans some financial breathing room. Let's break down what is actually inside this package, because a lot of people only hear the headlines. First, there's a big win for many working families. No taxes on tips and no taxes on overtime pay. This is a big deal because for restaurant workers, service employees, or anyone putting in extra hours, you get to keep every dollar you earn on those tips or overtime shifts. That can quickly add up to more money in your bank account every single month, which can help with bills, groceries, or just covering higher living costs. These kinds of targeted incentives encourage people to work a little extra and reward them for doing so, which is something that many Americans will welcome in this challenging economy. But that is not the only thing included. The bill also extends the 2017 tax cuts permanently, which helps avoid a painful tax hike that was about to hit millions of taxpayers. If Congress had let those 2017 tax cuts expire, millions of workers would have seen their tax rates rise overnight, shrinking their paychecks. Now, with those cuts locked in, people can plan with more confidence, knowing they will keep more of their hard-earned dollars. Add to this a new auto loan deduction up to $10,000 for American-made cars, and you have another benefit designed to encourage domestic manufacturing and give families relief when buying a vehicle. And let's not overlook the permanent expansion of the child tax credit to $2,200 per child, a move that alone could deliver thousands of dollars to working families. Overall, the One Big Beautiful Bill is aiming to help working class and middle class households, even if it leaves some questions about funding for social safety nets. Let's zoom in for a moment on the child tax credit, which is one of the most popular elements of Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill. The plan is to make the expanded credit permanent at $2,200 per child instead of letting it drop back to $1,000. That extra $1,200 per child makes a big difference for parents struggling with everyday expenses. Just think about it for a second. If you have 3 kids, that is an extra $3,600 in your pocket each year. That money could help pay for childcare, school supplies, medical bills, or just keep food on the table. For many American families, that is far more powerful than the uncertain Doge dividend promise because it is guaranteed through the tax system and does not rely on impossible savings targets. Another reason this child tax credit matters is that it is permanent, which gives parents some much needed stability. There is nothing worse than planning your budget only to have lawmakers change the rules halfway through the year. This permanent expansion will let parents breathe easier, knowing they will have that money year after year. The effect ripples through communities too, because when families have more money, they can spend it at local stores, support small businesses, and keep the economy growing. That is why a predictable child tax credit is so valuable. It is like a safety net for the next generation. Compared to the Doge dividend, this is a realistic and dependable benefit that families can plan on. So while $5,000 might sound flashy, a steady $2,200 per child every single year is a true lifeline for American parents. But now let's talk about the less comfortable side of this bill, because there is always a trade-off. As part of funding Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, there are big cuts coming to Medicaid and SNAP benefits. These are programs that millions of Americans rely on for their basic needs. For Medicaid, estimates suggest between 11 million and 17 million people could lose coverage entirely. That means if they end up sick or have to go to the hospital, they will have to pay out of their own pockets. With medical bills so high in the United States, this could push families deep into debt or even bankrupt them. These cuts are hard to swallow, especially if you are already living paycheck to paycheck. SNAP benefits, which help pay for groceries, are also getting a 20% cut at the federal level. The government's plan is to push this funding down to the states, telling them, if you want to keep providing extra benefits, you have to find the money yourselves. That is a huge burden for state budgets, and many will struggle to make up the difference. If states cannot step in, families can see smaller SNAP benefits or lose them altogether. So while the bill tries to support working people with tax breaks, it is also taking away safety nets that protect the most vulnerable. This is a big balancing act, one that will leave many people with more money in their paychecks, but fewer protections if something goes wrong. It is essential for viewers to see the entire picture because policies always have winners and losers, and these cuts could hurt millions if we do not watch carefully. One of the questions I hear over and over is, will we ever get another stimulus check like during the pandemic? Let's be honest here. The odds are slim. The country is moving away from one-time relief checks and focusing instead on targeted tax breaks, credits, and other incentives to get people working and keep the economy moving. Under Trump's current plan, there is no new round of stimulus payments. Instead, the focus is on making overtime and tips tax-free, extending tax cuts, and offering targeted credits like the child tax credit. The reasoning is that if you want to help people, you give them tools to earn more, not just one big check. That might sound frustrating to folks who are still struggling, but that is where the policy debate is headed. Another reason stimulus checks are not on the table is that the federal deficit has ballooned. The government is borrowing more money than ever, and even supporters of stimulus payments say the debt is too big to add another round. That means if you were hoping for a fresh stimulus check in your mailbox, you will probably be disappointed. Instead, these tax breaks and credits are designed to put money back into your paycheck slowly, month after month. That way, you do not have to wait for Congress to approve another emergency package. It is a more stable, but also slower way to deliver financial help. If you are wondering if that is fair, you are not alone. Many people feel the same way. But that is the plan for now, and there is no sign of a new stimulus check anytime soon. Let's explore how this bill tries to encourage people to get back to work or work more hours. The biggest carrot here is making tips and overtime pay tax-free, which is a huge deal for service workers, hospitality staff, or anyone picking up extra shifts. Think about this. Every dollar you make in overtime, you keep. That makes overtime worth a lot more and encourages folks to jump on extra work when they can. On top of that, by cutting taxes on tips, people working in restaurants or delivery services will take home more of what they earn. That is a clear incentive to stay in the workforce, especially at a time when many employers are desperate to find enough workers. The bill also tries to boost federal hiring with the idea that the government should lead by example in growing the workforce. Whether you work for a federal agency or a private company, this push is all about putting people in jobs and rewarding them for working harder. The combination of tax cuts, tax-free overtime, and expanded credits means that the more you work, the more you keep. That is a very different approach from simply handing out checks, and it has its supporters and critics. Some say it motivates the right behavior, while others believe it leaves out people who simply cannot work more due to health or family limits. But one thing is clear. This policy is designed to push Americans back into the workforce and reward them for showing up, staying on the job, and putting in those extra hours. So let's pull all of this together before we wrap up. The Doge dividend, once pitched as a $5,000 check for every household, looks like a fantasy now that savings have fallen far short of the original promise. On the other hand, Trump's one big, beautiful bill brings real benefits to working people. Tax-free overtime, no tax on tips, permanent child tax credit boosts, and bigger deductions for buying American-made cars. These measures could help a lot of families, especially those still reeling from high prices. But the bill also has serious consequences, with big cuts to Medicaid and food stamp programs that millions of vulnerable Americans rely on. This is not a simple yes or no issue. It is a trade-off with winners and losers that will play out over the coming year. Going forward, the chance of another big stimulus check is close to zero, so families will need to plan based on these tax credits and deductions instead. I will be watching these policies closely and bringing you updates every step of the way so you always know what's happening with your benefits and your paycheck. We all deserve to understand the truth, free of hype and half promises. So thank you so much for staying informed with Social Security Post. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you found this breakdown helpful. And do not forget to leave a comment with your questions about Social Security or these new policies. I promise I will do my best to answer you. Until next time, take care and keep looking out for each other.